next topic and our next speaker. And this time I'm particularly delighted to be able to welcome Professor Ramnarayan. I don't think he requires introduction really. Professor Ramnarayan is a legend in the field of HR, learning and OD. Dr. Ramnarayan is a resident faculty at the Indian School of Business. After his engineering and MBA, he did his PhD and has been a professor at the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad for 13 years. Has been visiting faculty at Case Western Reserve University for a year and guest professor at the University of Bamberg, Germany for close to 2 years. He has carried out research funded by Ford Foundation, World Bank, Commonwealth Secretariat, Department for International Development, Human Capital Leadership Institute, and the German Science Foundation. Professor Ramnarayan has very kindly agreed to come in and talk to and share with you his ideas on building the learning organization by developing habits of the heart. So what those are, he's going to try and tell us more about during the course of his talk. For now, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for building the Agile organization by developing habits of the heart, Professor Ramnarayan.
A very, very good morning to you. I'm going to start with a short story. And this is a story of a 70-year-old rural organization. On the face of it, it would appear that this is a wrong example for talking about agile organization. And I heard the story firsthand from the Magsaysay Award winner, Dr. Manibai Desai, when he had actually come and delivered this as a Vikram Sarabhai Memorial Lecture at IIM Ahmedabad. And I felt very inspired, and I thought this would be a great case for understanding actually agile organization. Let me tell you the story. Dr. Manibai Desai was a youngster, 24, 25 years of age. He was influenced by the ideas of Gandhiji and wanted to actually meet him and seek guidance on what he should do with his life. By then, he had already finished his graduation with distinction. And finally, the opportunity came in 1945, and Mahatma Gandhi had just 10 minutes, and he was going on a walk, and Manibai could really be along with him. Closer to the meeting, Manibai said that he got very nervous. He said, well, would he not get tongue-tied in front of this great man? And what would he do? Then many of the elders said, hey, don't worry about all this. Usually, it's very easy to talk to Gandhiji. He said, how so? He says, well, usually Gandhiji asks questions. And then, of course, Manibai immediately panicked. He said, no, don't worry. He asks questions, but don't be in a hurry to answer those questions. Because Gandhiji answers his own questions. And therefore, from that point, you just have to say, nod, and say, and then that's it. Can you do that? And of course, he said, yeah, I think I can manage that. So finally, the day came, and Gandhiji looked at Manibai, and then sure enough, said, Manibai, do you know why is India poor? Manibai nodded and said, And he says, Gandhiji said, India is poor because rural India is poor. Now, he says, tell me, why is rural India poor? Again, Manibai nodded. He says, rural India is poor because most people are unemployed and underemployed. Tell me, why is there so much unemployment and underemployment? By this time, Manibai had become an expert in grunting. So he again nodded and said, And he said, they are unemployed and underemployed because there is no enterprise. There are no new ideas. There is no enterprise to come up with the ideas and get them executed. And then finally he says, so you want to contribute? You want to make a difference? And for the first time, Manibai opened his mouth and said, yes. Then he says, if that is what you want, then it is a lifelong commitment that you need to make. There are no shortcuts. But you have to use your resourcefulness, you have to use your knowledge to create employment. Now, if you actually look at the, when he actually got the overall thing started, initially Manibai said, well, I would like to start with maybe an engineering project in my native state of Gujarat. Gandhiji said, no, I think you come to Urli Kanchan. Urli Kanchan is a place near Maharashtra. And he says, but he said, I don't know the language. He said, doesn't matter. Go learn the language, but then that is where you're going to actually work. Now, we will look at what happened in Urali Kanchan, and I would like to talk about why is it that there is non-agility, using the example of Urali Kanchan. If you look at Urali Kanchan as a village at that point of time, there was abject poverty. Now, people at particularly the lower sections, there was starvation. There was water scarcity, it had not rained for a long time, and therefore drinking water was a major problem. There was a group of tribals who had actually taken to robbing the crops and the homes, and so the misery was getting compounded. Added to all of these things, there was an Afghan money lender called a Pathan, and this person was charging 300% interest. In other words, if you really look at this entire misery, given all this misery, the people had actually got addicted to drinking and gambling. And of course, there's no school to talk about. In other words, this was a basket case that one can really talk about. Now, the question that comes up is an obvious question. Now, there is nothing that is happening in the village to address all these problems. Why? Why is there no agility? You find that there's an interesting point comes up, sluggishness or inflexibility, which is the opposite of agility, happens when no one owns the problem. Who owns this problem? Who is the one who is supposed to set all this right? Nobody. Why? Because most of the time, if the problem is too big, nobody owns it. A problem is uncontrollable, it is not our problem. Therefore, if you ask me, is corruption a problem? I'll say yes. Is casteism a problem? I'll say yes. Is climate change a problem? I would say yes. But that does not mean I'm going to do anything about it. Now, which means my definition of a problem is a very theoretical one. The important idea is problem becomes a problem only when somebody takes ownership of the problem. Here the problem seemed to be too large, and therefore nobody owned the problem. And therefore, there is sluggishness, there is no inflexibility. Therefore, I would like to suggest that agility is the ability to move quickly and flexibly to pursue your chosen purpose. In other words, what would be the definition of agility in Urali Kanchan? That you are able to move quickly and flexibly to solve the problems, and the purpose is create rural employment through involvement of people, because that is the Gandhian principle. Now, what do you need for that? Capability, alignment, engagement, actions. Now, did capability exist in Urali Kanchan? No. They had no idea of how to solve the water problem. They had no idea of what to do with criminals. They had no idea how to do with the money lender. So capability has to be developed. Alignment. There is no alignment within the community. There are different sections of the society not aligned. Alignment has to be created. People had to be engaged, and actions had to be taken. Therefore, the whole question that we are looking at is how is all of these things going to take place? That is what, for me, actually goes. And I like to share with you what are the habits of the heart that go in building all of these things. To begin with, when this young man, 24, 25 years of age, goes there to Urali Kanchan, gets involved, he asks Gandhiji, Gandhiji, what is my role here? What am I supposed to do here? Now, I thought at least given my kind of background, if you had put me in a kind of engineering project, I can be useful, but then what do I do here? And Gandhiji said, Manibhai, you have to be like a fire bucket. Have you seen a fire bucket? He said. He said, yes. Like a fire bucket hanging on the hook, you are my fire bucket. You have to find out where the fire is. You have to move there and put out the fire. That is what your role is. And therefore, the whole idea is there is no role here. Now, you have to find the problem. You have to solve the problem. That is your role. Now, I'm going to tell you how this entire kind of thing unfolded, and Manibhai actually became a teacher, a health worker, an agriculture consultant, a person who spearheaded cooperative movement, and so on and so forth. I'm going to tell you about that part. To begin with, Manibhai went around talking to people, the poorer sections, the women, Even the tribals involved in stealing, they talk to them and find out, hey, why is this so much problem? What do you think? What can be done? And everyone seemed to think that all this is happening primarily because the Hanuman Mandir is in disarray, and God Hanuman is very unhappy with us, with the village, and that is the reason why there is no rain, there are no problems, and so on. Now, this is a uniform view that is coming across, no matter whom you talk to. Then the first thing that Manibai decides is that we must really renovate the mandir. Now, many of the people involved in Gandhian principles say, this is completely wrong, you cannot really do this. I mean, but this person says, hey, this is the point of entry I need. This is what people are saying, everyone is saying this. So I'm going to do this kind of part. But then he negotiated with the villagers, and with their consent, he said, can we also add some classrooms in this temple? And of course, they accepted. And finally, the temple got rebuilt, the classrooms got built, he became the first teacher. And suddenly the village started perking up and saying that, oh, there is some kind of hope. There's some kind of optimism that is coming up in this entire kind of part. Even as we are going along, we are finding the Manibai realized that there was need for agriculture. There was something which was needed, but water was needed. And some of the villagers said the only source of water, only well that is some water is near the railway station. They went to the railway station, and when they found the water was very saline in content and therefore could not be used for steam engines. Now, you could not have a pump near the railway station. Therefore, Manibai started understanding about oil engines and lift irrigation and how do you lift and bring the water. And soon enough, that water started coming in. The minute, in fact, they had developed the lift irrigation there, the villagers by then had understood what it really meant and then found that there was a river nearby from which the water could be lifted and brought in. And soon, that was the program that actually got started. The minute the water became available, it was the soil was very brackish, and therefore a number of things could not be grown. These people studied the soil chemistry and found that it was good for growing vegetables. It was good for growing grapes and good for growing sugarcane, for wheat, for millet. Therefore, this person started understanding what it really meant, and very soon, all of these things started growing. And therefore, from that point of view, there was expertise getting developed in varieties of areas. Agricultural people, a number of people suddenly realizing that, hey, this can be done. And then, in fact, they started a cooperative movement. The sugarcane was getting done. Therefore, let's convert it to sugarcane. Let's have a cooperative, make sugar. That was, again, an action that was actually taking place. In all of these kind of things, at some point of time, they found that Manibai's kind of part was Gandhiji was using charkha. He was saying this charkha does not give enough livelihood. You need something more than that. And he used to have arguments with Gandhiji, apparently. He was 50 years his senior, but then he used to talk to him and say that charkha, how much money does it generate? It's not enough. And then he found at one point of time the local cow, these people started breeding it with exotic breeds from thoroughbreds from other countries. And then in one of the experiments, there was a calf that was born, which was kind of a mix of the local cow with the thoroughbreds from the exotic breeds that he had brought in. And they named that calf as Savitri, and Savitri brought in the hardiness of his mother and the productivity of the father. And within a short time, the milk production went up by 15 to 20 times. And all of a sudden, the whole looking at the face of the village started going, and he started saying that, hey, this approach is my non-violent bullet against poverty. And therefore, as he put it, Manibai actually became a money boy, because with grapes and with sugarcane, with this milk production, there was a large number of things which started happening. We can actually go on with this entire kind of thing. There was a cholera outbreak, and how did he manage this, and so on and so forth. But then let me, in fact, start moving towards what does the story all mean for the habits of the heart. And for doing that, I would like to give you a kind of an overall table. It really says, if you look at the first one, it says there's a habitual mindset. A habitual mindset is something that we do by force of habit, and something that we do by force of habit is what makes us inflexible. For example, most of the time, no matter what we start out with, what great visions we start out with, sooner or later we get preoccupied with narrow goals and activities. Now, this Warren Bennis calls this the unconscious conspiracy. You may start your job with great vision. Soon, everyone around you, your friends, will ensure that you are doing meaningless activities. So therefore, the first important habitual mindset is we get sooner or later drawn, sucked into narrow individual tasks. Habits of the heart is being inspired about a broader goal, direction of larger significance. All of these things happen primarily because Manibai actually became inspired. At one point of time, Gandhiji told him, you're going to be in this thing, in Urli Kanchan. So Manibai said, no, Morarji Bhai wants me to come to Gujarat. He said, no, I'll talk to Gujarat thing. You're going to be here. Okay, I will give you commitment for 12 years. Gandhiji said, that's not good enough. I want you for a lifetime here. Now, the whole idea that we are talking about, you are being inspired to actually make a positive difference. And therefore, the whole question that we are looking at as a leader, one needs to say, why is something important? Why is something important? Rural India is in trouble, and if he said that if you don't manage Urli Kanchan, if you cannot manage Urli Kanchan, you cannot, we are going to get independence. We cannot manage Delhi if we don't know how to grow Urli Kanchan. Therefore, from that point of view, you are my agent. What you're going to do here is going to actually transform. In fact, Manibhai's experiments have gone on to make a difference to 4.5 to 5 million people, 5 million families across 70,000 villages in some 16 different states. Now, therefore, this is indeed a huge, huge change. We are not talking about making change only in Urli Kanchan. We are understanding the technology of how do you bring about change. And so, therefore, all that requires the currency of inspiration. And the currency of inspiration is something that we're talking about. The other issue that we are looking at, a habitual mindset, is the silo mentality. We all get, like it or not, caught up in functional myopia. Now, the habits of the heart that we are talking about is the ability to see and care. All of these things happen because you see and you care, you notice. At one point in time when there was a cholera outbreak, people said, well, if I get involved, I will also get cholera. Now, at the, Gandhiji said, we'll have to control the epidemic. So this person goes in the forefront. There are dead people, they have to be buried, they have to be taken, they have to be done this. You have to teach people how to boil water, you have to teach people how to do this. All that is happening primarily because you are seeing and caring. Now, this means attending to others, attending to the context is very, very important. This is what we call as mindfulness, right? In other words, in all of these things, there is no judgment, there is no evaluation. You say, this is the existing state, and I'm going to do this. If they want a temple, I'm going to do this. Because I want connection. I want involvement of people. Therefore, what is the leader has to do? The leader has to shape the role to behave like a kind of a fire bucket. Your role cannot be a narrow role of finance or HR or whatever it is. You are a fire bucket. Now, which means for that you need informal relationships, you need anticipatory processes, you need consultative processes, and that is what we need. Then one of the habitual mindset is excessive reliance on rules and procedures and control systems. Tell me, what do I need to do? Can I really do an engineering project? Can I really do this? Can you get this person to report to me, etc., etc.? This person says nothing of that kind. You're going to go there and you're going to do this. In fact, Gandhiji first thing says that, this person, Manibhai Desai was a Brahmin, so he said the first task that you're going to do before you do anything else is we are going to get, clean some 40 toilets every day, with each toilet with 2 buckets of water. Now, I'm going to join you. I'm going to tell you these are the yardsticks. That is the first task that he is given. The next task is you become an accountant now. So suddenly the sweeper becomes an accountant. The third thing is something. In other words, the whole idea that we are looking at is you need to develop patience and persistence to build trust and credibility. And soon enough, this person was acceptable. This person was seen as an agricultural consultant. This person was seen as a dairy consultant. This person was seen. He built competence, which means in all of these things, a very important idea is enormous willpower you require, because any person without willpower will run away. The problem is kind of too forbidding. So therefore, from that point of view, attend to competence building. Because he says, if you're only a good man, people cannot approach you. You're a nice person, but then you need to have competence. I have a problem. How do I grow grapes? How do I grow millet? You need to tell me the answer. Now, how do I really increase the productivity of my cattle? You need to answer. So which means competence building is needed. Communication, learning by doing, experimentation. In all of these things, all of these technologies, issues, knowledge was developed in-house. Whatever was developed in-house actually became available for the entire country later, because you could really transfer experiences. That is the part that we are looking at. And finally, this is Drucker saying, most of us make the mistake of looking at leadership as status or position. And Drucker says that's completely wrong. He says leadership is not status, leadership is not position, leadership is not popularity, leadership is not a set of traits. Leadership is all about responsibility. And therefore, in all of these things, leaders are those people who make a difference. And therefore, the person has to have relentless focus on what positive difference can I really make. And therefore, at that point of time, in the initial stages, if you have to do this activity, that activity, so be it. That is what one would really require. To conclude, there's a quote that I have, which I thought was an interesting kind of quote. We live in a knowledge society. We live in a society where there is a huge amount of knowledge explosion. Things are changing all the time. But then there are values of compassion. There's values of caring. There's values of attending to people, which is very, very critical. And therefore, it says, what is greater than knowledge? Ask the mind. And a heart that can see and care, whisper the soul. And therefore, in my view, for an agile organization, beyond all the trappings and the structures and the processes and so on and so forth, you need to create a heart. You need to create a set of habits of heart, which actually says, hey, this is something I want to engage with. This is something I want to do. This is a meaning that I need to create. Unless that is there, this agility cannot only be a pipe dream. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Ramnarayan, for that very profound thought and for reminding us that while we get carried away and caught up with our jargons and systems and processes, that we must not forget the voice of the heart. So thank you very much for doing that.